Thank you, Andy, and Mustana, and Gina, Sergeant Arms, and Ralph. Thank you so much for having me on here tonight. Thank you all for being here. Barbara, it's an honor to share the mic with you tonight. I'm inspired by your history in our party and the role that you played, and I look forward to seeing what you have to say tonight. I'm super excited about it, so let's put that through with him. What I'm actually talking about tonight is the legislative agenda for Democrats going forward into the session that's starting, I think, on the 8th. So we're in Texas. We're really excited about it. We've been working really hard on it. I'm also going to talk about the state of our party, what we're going to have to do to keep and maintain the seats that we won this last cycle and how we can build upon it for 2020, which is just around the corner. So just a brief introduction. My name is Mike Floyd. I'm a school board member down in Pearland, Texas. I'm also your state party treasurer for the Democrats of Texas. So I was elected to the last convention that was in Fort Worth. So I'm happy and honored to be able to work with Gilberto Hinojosa, our chairman, our vice chairwoman, Carla Braley, our vice chair of finance, Chris Hollins, and our secretary, Lee Forbes. And I can tell you that I'm so happy to be here tonight because there were a couple moments on 290 that I thought it wasn't that high, especially in this weather, and so I'm just so happy to be here. When I got elected, I was still in high school, and we were in Pearland, Texas. I think Pearland is kind of like A-Leaf, a lot smaller though, maybe a little bit less progressive as well. But I won against a 47-year-old two-term Trump Republican who was our board president for the past 4 years of his 6 years in office. It was a tough campaign, but me and a ragtag team of 18-year-olds pulled it off, and we did well. But when I won, I was still living with my mother and my father in our house in Pearland. And I remember talking to a bunch of elected officials who called me, congratulated me right after I won. And what happened was, they said, oh, look, Mike, yes, you got to talk to the press, talk to the media, but be aware of one thing. You're going to get a bunch of mail, just tons and tons, dozens, if not hundreds of pieces of mail in the next couple of days. I said, okay, fine, I'll watch out for it. Some of them would be vendors, some of them would be letters from constituents, some of them nice notes, some of them not so nice notes. And I remember the first couple of days, there were just, stacks full of mail. And then all of a sudden, they were gone. And I knew that for me, you said the Honorable Mike Floyd on them, school board member. And all of a sudden, they were gone. And so I have 4 brothers and sisters. So I thought, logically, one of them is stealing my mail, because when you're young, it's really cool to get mail that is not a bill or something, right? And many of you can attest to that. But all of a sudden, my mail was gone, and I was worried because these are my constituents. I've got to answer them. I've got to see what's going on out there. I want to make sure I'm being responsive because that's what I ran my campaign on, transparency and accountability. So I asked my parents if they'd seen any. My siblings, swore that they weren't taking them. So one day I came home after one of my last days at high school. The school was interesting. Another story to tell all together. But when I got home that day, and all of a sudden on my bed was this huge stack of mail. And I went to my parents and said, Mom, it was like wrapped in a bow, so I knew it was her. I said, Mom, what are you doing? I asked if you had seen my bow. And she said, well, I didn't know who it was written out to. And I said, well, look, it says the Honorable Mike Floyd. And she said, I don't know an Honorable Mike Floyd. So that's my family. They do a good job of reminding me of that every single day. Yes. So just to recap, I'm sure maybe you had a recap session in December. I'm not going to meet in December, but I was scheduled to come in November. But I couldn't come because it was the day after the election. You were being taken out to Austin and said, hey, we have an emergency meeting up here, you've got it. We flipped 12 seats in the State House here in Texas. We flipped 2 state Senate seats. We flipped, of course, 2 congressional seats in 7 and 32. And across the board, Democrats gained in over 31 congressional districts and several more. I have actually all the stats here. I'm going to pull them out just so I can read them to you. But I'm going to do that on the second part of this speech, which is going to be a little bit more about where we go from here and how we build upon the success that we've had, and how we prevent the Republican onslaught that they're trying to bring out in 2020. But for the legislative session, specific to education, because I'm a school board member, I know a lot about it. Public education, of course, has been slashed in Texas. We ranked number 43rd in the nation in quality of education. 43rd. We have the second largest population, following California, the largest landmass in the contiguous United States. We're 43rd in education, one of the best economies ever in the United States, but we have 43rd in education. You have to ask yourself, why is that happening? Why on earth do Republicans who've had the governorship and the Senate and the House for such a long time now, why would they want to cut education so much? And I don't think the Republicans are as malicious as a lot of people think they are. I don't think that they're trying to dumb down the population to keep their political control. Yep. That's a theory that's out there. I think what's going on is far more, it's different. What they're trying to do is they're trying to break down the public education system to usher in a private education system. Vouchers and courses, right? They're doing it all. Look at what they're doing to HISD right now. With this whole recapture thing, the Robin Hood thing, they're taking away hundreds of thousands, if not tens of millions of dollars, depending on your calculation, away from Houston ISD when they are in a budget shortfall right now. Several of their schools are underfunded and dilapidated. And what they're doing is they're taking that money out of HISD and giving it to giving it to rural districts who don't have the population to sustain a school district. Sounds like a great idea, right? We've got to make sure the folks in rural Texas are also getting a quality education, but not at the expense of black and brown kids in HISD or any major city, right? So we've got to find a way to do both. How do we make sure that rural communities in Texas are also getting quality education while we're making sure that the most vulnerable amongst us in our communities, which happen sometimes to be black and brown communities, also have great education? What we need to do is we need to increase what they call the basic allotment for students here in Texas. What that basically means is every student here in the state gets about $5,500 per year from the state. Every student in Texas. Some districts get more based on other variables. For example, when your property values increase, right? Because they are. In my community, they're increasing. In your community, they're increasing. And average in Texas, they're increasing about 10% a year, which is quite a lot. What happens is, as your property values increase, your property taxes increase as a result. And what happens is the money that the state gives you decreases disproportionately as your property values go up. So what happens is, as these fast-growing communities become more valuable, your education system starts getting cut. In Pearland ISD, we lose hundreds of millions of dollars a year because of this. The formula to allocate that is 4 pages long. It's a 4-page long formula. It's so complicated, they say only one man in Texas knows how to use it, and he's almost done with the whole thing. So the good news about Texas is that we have a new Speaker of the House coming in, Dennis Bonnen. We might be happy with him, we might not be happy with him, we'll have to see how it goes. I was actually relatively happy with Joe Strauss while he was in office. He did a lot of good things, he kept a lot of bad things from coming to the floor of the House, including the bathroom bill, as you all remember. What we're worried about this year is how we can increase basic allotment, so increasing maybe that 5,500 to maybe 7,000, maybe 8,000. That would be an ambitious move, but it would be great for the students and teachers here in Texas. We'd be able to increase quality of education across the entire state, regardless of where you live. And then we've got to address that 4-page archaic funding formula. And let me tell you something. Hundreds of school districts in the state of Texas sued the TEA, remember this, a couple years ago, because they said that the way they were funding our schools was unconstitutional. Republicans and Democrats alike get it on education. If you go to your school boards, and I know many of you may have some school board members that are conservative, I'm not too sure, I do. I'm the only Democrat on the school board in Pearland. But the board voted 7-0 unanimously to condemn the efforts from Texas Republicans to push a voucher scheme in our districts across the state. So Republicans, Democrats in education are on board together. It's those who are like Betsy DeVos, who have an investment in private education, who are really pushing the vouchers. And so Dan Patrick as well. Yeah, and his wife, I believe, just was recently elected to the state Senate in Texas. So one more thing about the Senate, and this is something that Democrats have to be aware of. There was a special election, I believe it was in 13 or 19 in Texas. Pete Gallego, who ran for Congress, was running for a state Senate seat. It's a Democrat district, blue throughout. We lost that this year in special election. Now, if we had won that seat, we would have been able to block Republican supermajority in the Senate. They would not have been able to do anything, get any bill without a Democrat vote. That was a mistake the Democratic Party made, right? We just weren't, we thought it was a blue district, we got complacent, we were overconfident, and the Republicans sent their whole, Greg Abbott sent his entire team down to the district, the Democrat district, and Republican etched out a victory. And I think that's a perfect segue into the fear that I have, and the fear that so many Democrats have about 2020, is that the Republicans were taken by surprise in 2018 in a way, especially here in Texas. They didn't work at all. They thought they had it in the bag. But when a Senate candidate loses by 2.6 points, well within any kind of statistical win, any kind of polls, all the polls who showed Beto O'Rourke down by double digits was completely wrong. The internal polls from Republicans were completely wrong. And they know that now. And so in a way, 2018 was our year to sneak in a victory and embrace for impact. But we showed them our strength, and it is a real blue wave that happened. It's a strong wave, and I think it can be recreated in 2020 when Trump is on the ballot. But I think the Republicans are going to come out as well. And so my fear is of course, we won't work hard, or as hard, because what happens if Beto O'Rourke is not on the top of our ticket? You know, what if that wave was really him and his energy and his campaign? So we got to work our tails off to make sure that in 2020 we get out the vote more so than we did in 2018. And I want to share with you a couple of statistics. Because I have access to the party data. I made sure I knew this. We had a 180% increase in turnout in Texas compared to 2014, the last midterm election. We had 200 plus counties increase their Democratic turnout. So the Democrats did better in 200 of the 254 counties in Texas. 12 House seats, and we had an increase in Democratic performance in 71 House seats, which is a really good sign. 8 of those seats are within 5 percentage points, which means we could effectively, if we work hard and keep the seats we gained, we can actually take back the House with some luck. And that would be a huge victory for Democrats. It'd be a huge victory for Texas as well. 5 U.S. House seats are within 5 percentage points, which is fantastic news. We flipped the partisan control of the Harris, Fort Bend, Nueces counties, commissioner courts, which is a fantastic thing as well. Lena Hidalgo winning here in Harris County was a huge victory for all of us. We swept the ballots in all the Court of Appeals. In this cycle alone, the Democratic Party of Texas raised over $15 million, which is the best we've ever done in a long, long time if you count inflation, right? So that is fantastic news. We have the infrastructure now to compete. There are a couple things that I want to show you. Our party is made up of, if you say who are the Democrats of Texas, 56% of our party is female, 20% of our party are African American and Black, 35% is Hispanic, 5% are Asian in the Pacific Islands. We've got to reach out to that community more and grow them. 35% of our party is actually under the age of 35, which means we're a genuinely young party. We want to get more young people involved, not just thousands of them working on campaigns, but maybe one day thousands of them running for office here in our state, showing that the Democratic Party of Texas is young, is bold, is full of ideas, and can bring together the lessons and wisdom of maybe some of our older citizens with the vigor of our youth, which I think is something that is not mutually exclusive anymore. You hear that often, that you can't have a young party and have wisdom. It's not true. We can have both. We're still working on Van. So my big beef with the party as treasurer is that I ran a campaign before. I've managed a campaign before, and Van, for me,
You might explain what Van is.
Van is our virtual database. So I don't know how many of you were block walking or phone banking, but whenever you went on and you had that little app on your phone, that was Van. It's all of our data together. And several state parties, I think the majority of them actually use that collectively. They use this data collectively. We build on it. Whenever you have a campaign and you put your data in Van, he has a campaign, he puts his data in Van, and kind of they come together, right? So when Beto O'Rourke, he's using Van and putting all this data in from across the state, he might not be working with your local party, but he is contributing to your local Van data. Now the problem with Van is it's very complicated to use if any of you have used it before. And it's not fun. It needs to be simplified, it needs to be streamlined, and in fact, the data has to be good data. We can't be calling people and they say, no, this is not the right number. You don't have my data right, or calling dead numbers that don't work anymore. We've got to clear the system out. And so we're working with our national party to do that. It's expensive. We've put in hundreds of thousands of dollars into VAN. So, you know, California uses their own network. They don't use VAN at all. That's maybe not the most realistic solution for Texas. But we're exploring all options. We reached and had conversations with 23 million people. 6.8 million people, 23 million conversations. And that doesn't include all of us who've talked to our friends and neighbors without logging in that data into an application, right? So that's just what we have recorded, 23 million conversations this summer. So a couple of things that I think we need to do as Democrats to make sure that we actually can gain in 2020. And this is just from my perspective of the party. Of course, you know, I love to represent the party, but this is just my opinion. We need to make sure that we are sustaining members to the party itself. Right now we have about 66,000 sustaining members across the state of Texas. That's better than we've ever had before. That means a sustaining member, of course, is someone who gives every month, $5, $10, $20. 66,000 amplifies that total to be generous amounts of money. If everyone in this room either donates to a campaign, or your local Democratic club, or the Democratic Party of Texas, or maybe even, as we get into the presidential primaries, a candidate there, right? All of that money is actually going to good use. Because if you give it to, hypothetically, let's say, I don't know, maybe Beto O'Rourke runs for president, and hypothetically, let's say maybe Kamala Harris runs for president. Either campaign you give to, that money goes to good use here at home, because it creates a message and it gets that data out. So we've got to be generous in this time, because you're about to hear why we need to get rid of Trump. If impeachment doesn't pan out, if he steals and obstructs the Mueller investigation report, then we've got the only way to get him out for sure, through the ballot box. And we can do that here in Texas. If we deliver the 38 electoral votes of Texas to the Democratic candidate, they will be the next president of the United States, and we will get rid of Donald Trump once and for all. And that's just the truth. That's just the truth. They can take Arizona, they can take Florida, they can even take Pennsylvania. But if they lose Texas, it's game over. So we've got to be as energetic as ever before. We've got to be talking to our neighbors, not just all about politics. Because the party sometimes is only around during elections. If we are there in our communities during April and May, during our local elections, winning school board races and city council seats, we can actually start changing the blood of Texas, the DNA. That culture that says that Texas is a Republican state is simply not true anymore. Texas is a swing state, and we've got to treat it like a swing state. One last thing that I always like to end with is we've got to be united as a family, as Democrats. The 2016 election showed a lot of things. It showed, that there are definitely people in our party who disagree with each other. I will tell you straight up, I was too young to vote for Senator Sanders, but if I was old enough in the primary, I wouldn't. But I proudly voted for Hillary Clinton in the general election. I don't know who is coming up in this next election cycle. I don't think Bernie Sanders should run again, but maybe we need a Beto O'Rourke to come and energize our party. But what I'm saying is this: you can be the treasurer of the party, you can be an elected official, and you can disagree with your friend sitting across from you about who would be the best president. Because in the end, any Democrat would be better than what we have right now. Amen. All right. So let's make sure we can have debate, but let's not argue with each other. We can be civilized, but let's not get angry and yell at each other. Let's treat each other as part of a big family that might have disagreements about 5 or 10% of our agenda, but understand that we all agree together about 80, 90%, if not most of the time, right? So let's get out there, let's prepare for our local elections that are coming up in May. That's also important. But let's make sure we keep an open mind about the future of our party. That it's going to be young and diverse. That it's going to be made up of everybody, rich, poor, white, black, gay, straight, transgender, or cisgender. Everyone has a place in our party, and I'm so proud of the diversity of this room and the fact that you all came out here on a night like this, the day after New Year's. It's pretty remarkable. So I'm so happy to have shared my story and my advice with you, and I'm so thankful to have been invited. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing what we can do together in 2020. Thank you, everybody.